I want to thank you, first of all, and also want to thank the honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman for his motion. I'm pretty sure, Mr. Speaker, that the honourable member who introduced this motion has very wonderful many qualities, but timing is not one of them. Because if one wanted to criticize a government for economic performance, one would think that it would be done when things are bleak and jobs are not being created. Just last Friday, Mr. Speaker, Statistics Canada reported even better than expected job numbers with the creation of 77,000 new full-time jobs, the third largest one-month increase in the past 5 years. But, Mr. Speaker, behind those numbers are individual Canadians, tens of thousands of them, tens of thousands who can begin to take greater control over their personal finances, tens of thousands who can provide a better life for themselves and for their families. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, the latest data continues to show the significant gains made in the jobs growth since the middle of last year, a trend that economists are now citing as evidence that the momentum we set earlier this year is continuing. More than 38,000 young people, Mr. Speaker, young Canadians, found full-time work last month, making it possible to save for next year's tuition, to get into the first apartment or buy their first home. And the senior economist from TD, DePrato, concluded, I quote, "We think the Canadian economy is in a very good place right now," unquote. A very good place indeed, Mr. Speaker, an economy in a very good place, thanks to the very good management. While the economy is in a very good place and we are starting to see a slow and steady recovery even in Alberta, I know that many people in my home province of Alberta are still feeling anxious about the economic situation. I know this because I know people who have been affected by the downturn. They're my neighbors, my family, my friends, my constituents. This is why our government has provided significant support both in the short and the long term for Alberta during this difficult time. In our very first budget, Mr. Speaker, we provided $250 million in a fiscal stabilization fund to Government of Alberta. We responded to significant levels of unemployment by extending EI benefits for all Albertans who need them. And we helped diversify our markets by providing $750 million worth of loans from the Export Development Canada. In the medium term, Mr. Speaker, in Budget 2017, we provided the province of Alberta up to $30 million in grant funding to cover the interest cost of $250 million loan, which will put more than 1,500 Albertans to work over the next 3 summers, cleaning up orphaned and abandoned wells. The work will happen now, and the industry will pay back the loan over the next 10 years. Since taking office, Mr. Speaker, we have made historic investments in infrastructure in Alberta. Since taking office, my department has approved 138 infrastructure projects in Alberta worth a combined investment of $4.8 billion. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, today we marked a milestone. We have approved 3,000 projects since taking office with combined investment of $23 billion in Canadian communities. And vast majority of those projects are underway, creating jobs for Canadians. These include important projects like water wastewater project in Lacombe, Alberta, or highway improvements throughout the province of Alberta. And after a decade of inaction by the previous government, Mr. Speaker, finally we secured the federal funding for Yellowhead Highway free conversion project in City of Edmonton, my hometown. In fact, what we hear from our municipalities and provinces is that they are very happy the way we are making significant investments to support them to build the infrastructure their communities need. For the long term, Mr. Speaker, we have a track record of energy infrastructure approvals that my friends across the aisle are envious of. We have approved 3 pipelines, including Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain expansion, which will create 15,000 jobs during construction and hundreds more permanent jobs. This was made possible through the collaboration that we have been able to establish with the Government of Alberta and Premier Rachel Notley, and through the Climate Leadership Plan. And as part of the Pan-Canadian Framework on Climate Change, our government has proven that we can focus on energy and the environment together. Through this, we have accomplished results for Albertans and Canadians, and we will continue to do so. The party opposite, Mr. Speaker, of course, is offside with this approach. They preferred their failed approach of the last decade that did not see one single pipeline to Tidewaters approved. They were offset with every other party in this House, and they're offset with Canadians. They're offside with the Canadian businesses, which are telling them that pricing carbon is just the single best way to spur innovation and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. More than 60 businesses, Mr. Speaker, labor, and environmental organizations have come out in support of pricing carbon. Here is what some of their members had to say. Pierre Graton, president of the Mining Association of Canada, which represents 39 mining companies as well as several oil sands companies, said, I quote, "We think it's the best way to send a market signal to reduce emissions. This is something the industry believes, a generally held view, that's the best way to fight climate change." Apparently, the people on the opposite side do not extend, and this does not extend to them. Other president, the Aluminum Association of Canada, goes even further, saying that we think definitely the challenge is not to slow down this progress, but to accelerate the transition. Mr. Speaker, Canadians understand that climate change and economic growth can happen at the same time. I don't want to be unfair to the members on the opposite, Mr. Speaker. Finally, the party opposite belatedly recognized that climate change is real. And that's a good start, Mr. Speaker. So who knows, Mr. Speaker, perhaps by next time this year, the party opposite will come to see the need to take action on climate change by pricing carbon. Perhaps, but I'm not holding my breath. Because the fact is, the world moved beyond the position of the Conservative Party. Some 40 countries, over 20 cities, states and regions, including 7 of the 10 largest economies, are putting a price on carbon. So the direction is clear. More and more countries are moving toward pricing carbon, and our government is proud to place Canadians among their number. We realize, unlike the honourable member and his party, that fighting climate change requires more than fine words. It requires firm action. Our government is taking that action, the same action urged by businesses, endorsed by environmentalists, and embraced by jurisdictions around the world. And the recent economic data shows that. It is clear that we can create jobs, drive growth, and protect the environment all at the same time. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, it is today's economy. There's no better way of creating prosperity. Thank you.